everyone, and welcome to another casual review. We are moving right along with our Metroid Marathon. Today I will be talking about Super Metroid. For those of you who are keeping track at home, as far as the plot goes, in the very first Metroid, we had to go to planet Zebes and destroy all of the Metroids and Mother Brain, because the space pirates were using these in order to create a ultimate weapon that will destroy the galaxy. So Samus went there, destroyed all the Metroids on planet Zebes, and destroyed Mother Brain. In the second one, she has to go to planet SR388, and that is the origin planet of the Metroid. So she had to go there and destroy all of those Metroids. So now we are on Super Metroid, and it kind of starts with a spoiler for Metroid Samus Returns, so just a warning there. But at the end of Samus Returns, she, on planet SR388, she found a Metroid larva who was friendly towards Samus, and it ended up helping her defeat Ridley. I'm not sure if this was just in the remake or the original for the Game Boy. I only played the remake for the 3DS, and Ridley shows up, and the Metroid larva helps you defeat it. At the beginning of Super Metroid, it reveals that she turns the Metroid larva to scientists in order for them to study the Metroid larva. Apparently it has a lot of scientific breakthroughs that the scientists can discover. So I don't really agree with Samus' decision here, because the Metroid larva was kind of cute in a way, and it was definitely friendly towards Samus. It basically saved her life, and she just goes ahead and turns it right around to be handed in to the scientists so then they can study it and poke and prod it. I didn't really agree with that, but you know, Samus, she might be pretty cold and heartless. We don't really know a lot about her, so she just goes ahead and turns in the Metroid larva. Now, this is where the events start to unfold for Super Metroid, because the space pirates from Metroid 1 come back and they take the Metroid larva and take it back to planet Zebes. Apparently, they've been rebuilding since Samus was last there. So now we have to track Ridley and the space pirates back to planet Zebes, where the events of the first game took place, and we have to get the Metroid larva back, because they are going to use it to create a super weapon, just like they wanted to do in the first Metroid. So very repetitive as far as that goes. The planet itself is a different layout than when you first played it. I like to imagine it might just be on maybe like a different continent or something like that, just a different hideout for the space pirates. I will say that the space pirates in this game are a lot easier to beat than the ending of Metroid Zero Mission. They were like the final enemies for that game. So in this one, you encounter them fairly early on, like one of the first enemies, and they die within like one blast. So maybe Samus is a lot stronger than what she was in Zero Mission, or maybe the ones that I encountered in Zero Mission were like the elite soldiers, because you do face like different tiers of the space pirates as you progress through this game. Now, I will say this is the oldest of the Metroid games that I will be playing through. The first two that I played through were remade. This one never got a remake, so this is straight from the Super Nintendo. A lot of people say it is one of the best games of all time, and it is iconic, and there is no point in remaking it. I, however, do not have those nostalgic glasses on, and between you and me, I think it could benefit from a remake, probably. And then the original is always there for the people who just prefer the original Super Metroid, but for people like me, I think I would have really appreciated playing through a remake, especially after coming right off the tails of Metroid Samus Returns, the most modern Metroid game right before Metroid Dread. There's a lot of quality of life improvements that were made throughout the Metroid series that I'm missing here. I really miss the pulse scan. In Metroid Samus Returns, it like reveals a section of the map and reveals where hidden walls are. This does not have that. Most of the game, you're going to be firing off at random spots on the wall, hoping that you will reveal a secret spot. Some of it is common sense. sense. You can kind of tell where there are spaces that you can destroy, and eventually you get an item of some sort that does kind of reveal where hidden spots in the wall might be, but it is not nearly as streamlined as the pulse scan, and there's no way to reveal secret areas in the map. The map rooms hidden throughout the world of Planet Zebes only reveal certain parts of the map. They don't reveal all of the rooms, so there is still a lot of exploring you're going to have to do on your own. It does seem like the regular shots from the arm cannon break off most parts of the wall in this game, unlike the first two games where you'd have to use missiles or bombs in order to destroy those blocks. It just seems like the regular shots destroy more here, so I think they intended for you to just fire off on all cylinders all over the walls. It seems to be a little more stingy as far as missiles and super missiles go. I felt like I didn't unlock nearly as many as I did in previous Metroids. I do feel like the regular missiles in this game pack more of a punch though. Especially in Samus Returns, I felt like I was using the regular missiles more than I was using her regular arm cannon buster shots most of the time, especially versus bosses. In this one, they definitely did a lot more damage than they would, but you had less of them, so you had to use them a little more conservatively. Also, red doors that normally take missiles to open up take 5 missiles in this game to open up. I mean, it's not that big of a deal because once you unlock a certain door, then it just acts like a normal blue door that a regular buster shot will destroy. But 5 missiles, especially early game when you only have a set amount of missiles, it can take up quite a lot, especially if you have a boss coming up. It's certainly the type of game that expects you to discover things as you play along, or maybe like look up guides. It doesn't tell you exactly what all of the items do. You kind of have to figure it out yourself through trial and error. There's this one spot that I got stuck on for about 30 minutes, and I've never had to look up anything before for the other two Metroid games, but in this one I was just so stuck because the ground underneath me was crumbling, but there's spikes only a couple tiles right above where the bridge is, so I can't jump over the bridge, and whenever I step on the bridge it crumbles underneath me. So I spent 30 minutes, I can't backtrack because the wall behind me closed, and I was so stuck, and eventually I looked it up, and it turns out I was stuck on a spot known as Noob Bridge, because this was the developer's way of kind of telling you that there is a run button. And I didn't know this at first because in previous Metroid games, the run was unlocked through an upgrade. At least the super run was in like Zero Mission, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think Samus Returns even had a run button. But this is called Noob Bridge because noobs do not know that you are able to run, and you run across this bridge before it crumbles underneath you. I have mixed opinions about this because, one, I don't really appreciate being called a noob, even though, yeah, technically I am. And two, I also feel a little bit of relief knowing that I'm not the only person that got stuck at this part. So, just mixed opinions here. I ultimately thought it was pretty funny. Like, oh, immediately it pulls up, this is Noob Bridge, you must be a noob. Some of the controls themselves are a little more difficult to pull off as well. First of all, wall jumping. I had played through the previous two Metroid games. I had no idea that Samus could wall jump. I guess I never had any need to wall jump, but looking back, yeah, those games also, Samus could wall jump. And in this game, there are a couple scenarios where I don't think you necessarily have to wall jump, except this one section that you fall down like a pit and you have to wall jump your way back up. It was a little hard to pull off the wall jumps. It takes some timing, some practice. In most modern games where you wall jump, you press the jump button right as you press the opposite direction. In this one, you have to press in the opposite direction first, and then you hit the jump button. It's a little wonky to get the timing right. And then as far as the spacesuit goes, in previous Metroid games, this was the case, but not nearly as bad. But it's kind of hard to get the timing of the spacesuit correctly. This is the last suit that Samus has always unlocked that essentially makes it so she can fly. But you have to get the timing of the A jump just right, because it's like you can't just keep on tapping the jump button button over and over again. You have to like hold it for a set amount of time and release it for a set amount of time. I could never quite get the timing right in this one like I have in the previous 2 Metroid games. This game had, I don't think the other 2 Metroid games have this, but it has a super jump where if you are doing your super run for a set amount of time and then you stop and then you can like launch up into the air doing this like crazy super jump, but it doesn't exactly tell you the controls to pull this off. It's just one of those things that you kind of have to figure out yourself or look it up. I'm not sure if this is all this information is included in the manual or not, but it's not nearly as hand-holdy as the other Metroid games are. And it's not like those other Metroid games are hand-holdy by much aspect. In Metroid Returns that I'm thinking of, it'll tell you exactly what each upgrade is as you get it and like how to activate it. While we're talking about controls and using missiles, I wasn't too crazy about the control scheme in this game where you had to use the select button to scroll through your different weapons. The amount of times I've accidentally used a power bomb or a super missile when I meant to just do my regular bomb, it just happened a lot, and it just was tough in the middle of difficult boss fights where I had to cycle through my missiles and my regular shots. Even like the regular Metroids, you know, you have to freeze them before you hit them with the missile. It just was a little tedious using the select button. I felt like they fixed this solution by mapping the R button to a missile in the Game Boy Advance games rather than having to cycle through. Just another little minor inconvenience, but yeah, eventually I did get used to this control scheme where the R button was to aim upwards and the L button was to aim downwards. The progression and upgrades in this game feel a lot more random as well. The first 2 Metroid games, it just felt like I was kind of set on a path, not so much Zero Mission, but especially in Samus Returns, I felt like I was just kind of being guided, especially because each area was like its own progressional area. In this one, it definitely feels like you are wandering a lot more aimlessly. There's not a set curated path. It feels like everyone's experience and the order of upgrades that you unlock over time can be a little more random here, and I feel like I potentially missed out on some substantial upgrades, not just like unlocking extra missiles for my inventory or energy tanks, but it feels like maybe I might have missed out on certain upgrades that I don't necessarily need, but they would have helped. Like maybe some sort of upgraded Buster Shot or something with her arm cannon. In terms of navigation, I wish that they were a little bit more clear with their map, because whenever you are in an area that has a additional missile capacity upgrade or any kind of point of interest, really, they would have a little square on the map. But when you do get that upgrade, that square remains. So it's more difficult for me to keep track of rooms that I've explored and I've already gotten the upgrade in, or if I just need to go back there and get it when I unlock a new suit upgrade that will give me the power to access that upgrade. It just wasn't that clear to me, and it didn't do me any favors to keep track of what rooms I need to go back to and what rooms I've already explored. Now, I don't know if this is an upgrade or not, but I feel like there is no ledge grab, and I miss my ledge grab. Granted, once you get like the gravity suit, you don't really need the ledge grab, but that was definitely a quality of life that helped me with platforming in the previous Metroid games. And there is no jump when you're morphed into the ball. That might have been an upgrade that I missed in this one, or maybe it wasn't in this one, but the only way to progress like upwards vertically when you are morphed into the ball is by placing a bomb, and the blast will like lift you up a little bit. And that was in the previous games, but it also you also unlock the ability to jump while you're in the ball form. That being said, though, most of the other upgrades are similar to the Metroids that I've already played, and by this point I could kind of call myself a Metroid apprentice, we'll say. I'm not quite a master, but I'm at least a journeyman, where I know enough about each of the Metroid upgrades that are mainstays at this point that when I come across an area on the map that I can't access, I know what upgrade I need in order to progress through there. So I know, hey, I don't have what I need now, but you just need the morph ball, or hey, I understand that this indicates I need the super missile in order to destroy this block, rather than just trying to hit it with a bunch of regular missiles. I kind of know what all the upgrades do at this point, and there's not too many upgrades in Super Metroid that didn't make a return in the other Metroids that I've played through. I think the only thing unique to this one is probably that super jump I talked about earlier. player. I will say you get the super missile and the super bomb a lot earlier in this game than you do in the previous Metroid games. Usually in the previous ones, one of the final upgrades that you got was this super bomb, but in this one you got it like before even the halfway mark, or at least I did. And the super missiles, you come across those within like 10-20 minutes after you unlock the regular missiles. But enough about my complaints and comparisons. Let's talk about the other stuff, like the music. Apparently I found out that I was calling the music incorrectly when I was talking about older games like this. I kept calling it bit music. Apparently it's called chip music, so apologies for those previous videos where I was mistakenly calling this music the incorrect name. But I really enjoyed the chip music in this game, and it's just that classic Super Nintendo. I didn't grow up playing a Super Nintendo, but it still makes me feel nostalgic, and the graphics themselves look great. That 16-bit graphic definitely holds up in my opinion. It can feel dated in some ways, controls aside though. When there is a ton of stuff happening on the screen, it can get pretty bogged down and the frame rate can dip significantly, almost to the point where it just halts the gameplay and you just watch like Samus stutter across as all these particles are happening on the screen. This won't happen too often, and it is excusable because it is an older game, but this is another reason why I think that it might be able to benefit from a remake of some kind. I did have one unfortunate accident playing through this. I was playing it through it with the Nintendo Switch Online service on my Switch, and for some reason or another, it wasn't holding my save. I don't know if the NSO saves your save file onto the online cloud, and since I never connected to the internet before my Switch turned off, I lost, I want to say, about 2 days work, and I was pretty devastated too. I was about 4 or 5 hours in. For those of you who are familiar with Super Metroid, I was almost to the point where you got to the abandoned ship, like that ghost ship with all those weird floating mutant heads that appear. So I wasn't like too crazy far into the gameplay, but at this point I had spent about 4 or 5 hours just exploring and collecting upgrades and stuff, and it didn't hold my save, and I was pretty devastated. And I was worried because like Metroid Dread comes out in a week, I gotta hurry. So I ended up staying up really late, like to 1 a.m. playing, and I got even further than where I was previously within a third of the time. And once you know like where to go, it drastically shortens the gameplay length, and I was still having a great time. And I talked about this earlier in my Metroid Zero Mission review, but I just feel like these games are just so highly replayable. Everyone says like, man, I wish I could play Super Metroid for the first time again, and I think I disagree. I think Metroid games are even more enjoyable the second or third time around, where you know where to go and you just constantly get that drip feed of upgrades and gameplay. It just has that kind of motion where when you are not mindlessly wandering and just killing random enemies, you get, I don't know, it just, there's something else to it. It makes these highly replayable, and I think that the game developers of Metroid knew this at the time because it just incentivizes speed running, because it'll always tell you your clear time at the end of the game. I feel like I could go back to playing these Metroid games every year because they are short enough to be enjoyed over the course of just a couple of days. And I bet even if you knew where all the upgrades were, you could play all these games, maybe not Samus Returns, but you could play the other two both back to back within the course of one day if you knew where everything was. But that being said, if you don't know where everything is, it's still fun to explore things for the first time and just really take your time soaking in the whole game, soaking in the world. So I just think it can be enjoyed from both aspects, a first-time player and a returning player. I will say this about Super Metroid though. I think that this is the most intense and probably the most difficult Metroid that I've played thus far. I imagine that the first Metroid is even more difficult than this one, but since I played the remake, this one was tough. And it might be because it is dated and the controls, but it's doable, but it is certainly harder than the other Metroids in my opinion. And that intensity kind of sucks you in even more. It's almost like a pro because it is so intense. I don't know why this one set my nerves off more than the other ones. I can't articulate really into words why. Like, it definitely just feels more foreboding. Maybe that's the right word. I had an amazing time playing it though, like all of the other Metroids that I've played. When I did beat this game, it told me I had a runtime of 3 hours and 59 minutes, so I just beat under that 4-hour mark. I imagine it would have been significantly higher if I had just played my original file. I was about 4 or 5 hours in at that point, and I was only halfway through the game, so it would have been more around 8 or 9 hours with that original save file, but definitely shorter than Samus Returns still. It told me that I completed 64% of the game. That is pretty much in line with the other two Metroid games. I think Samus Returns I had about 70%, and Zero Mission I had 61%, so still a lot that I could have explored if I wanted to really spend my time playing through these games. I was really trying to hurry because I felt like I wouldn't have enough time to play through all 4 of these Metroids before Metroid Dread came out, but at the time of this recording, it is a Friday, so I still have 1 week left to play through all of Metroid Fusion. So at this point, I'm not really worried, and since I'm having such a great time playing through these other Metroid games, I'm not nervous at all about Metroid Fusion or the upcoming Metroid Dread. Obviously, I am going to give Super Metroid a 5 out of 5, and I will say this. It's not my favorite Super Nintendo game. That title still goes to Super Mario World, but I will say it is one of the best Super Nintendo games, hands down. It is so iconic, and I can just feel the work and the love that the developers put into this game. I can certainly see why lots of people consider this the best Super Nintendo game and the best Metroid game. It's also probably because they grew up playing this game, so I definitely get it, guys. This is an amazing game. Probably not my favorite Metroid game. As far as this Metroid Marathon goes, I think that title still might go to Metroid Zero Mission at this point, but there's a lot of reasons why that might be. It might be because that was the first Metroid game that I had played through in this marathon, and at this point it's kind of become a little samey. But at this point, these are all 5 out of 5 games, and I really enjoy the series. I'm excited to play through Metroid Fusion. Well, guys, that's it for me. Let me know what you think about Super Metroid or the Metroid series. How is your Metroid marathon coming along? Are you going to be able to finish them all before Metroid Dread? I'd love to hear your experience. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!